Hi, it's Kim Boon. Today I want to talk about what happened with Dr. Paul Tambyah from the Singapore Democratic Party in GE2025. Before I start, I wanted to address something that I read in the comment section. So there are some that feel that GE2025 is over and we should accept the results and move on. Let me start by saying that I absolutely agree that voters have spoken, and as a democracy, we accept the results and move forward as Singaporeans. But what I do not accept is that we do not look back at what happened and try to gain a better appreciation of what transpired. Let me use a school analogy. You're a parent, your kid finished an exam and they didn't do as well as they wanted. Do you tell them to look at the model answer so that they can do better next time? Or do you tell them to move on without knowing the answers? And maybe another analogy, if you can indulge me. You know the grieving process? Sometimes it's important to look backward in order to move forward. But I'll stop here with the philosophy lessons. So take a look at these faces. What do they all have in common? It's not a trick question. So they are all from the PAP, and if those are your MPs, you probably like them quite a bit. And for political observers, you will quickly realize that they are immensely popular within their wards, and in more than one of these GRCs that these MPs are contesting in, they are arguably the difference maker between victory and loss for the PAP. A good example is Tampines GRC, where the margins were razor thin, and Mr. Baey Yam Keng was probably the difference maker. Now, why am I telling you this? Because the reason for this MP's popularity will come out as we discuss one of the biggest surprises in GE 2025. In a straight-up percentage difference, what happened with Dr. Paul Tambyah in Bukit Panjang SMC was the biggest upset for me. Now, this contest was a straight-up repeat telecast of GE 2020, featuring him and PAP's Mr. Liang Eng Wah. So according to the Election Department website, there were around 33,000 eligible voters in GE 2025, and this is by and large the same as GE 2020 due to the boundaries being unchanged. Therefore, we're seeing the same candidates, same voters, same area. This is a perfect referendum to understanding how grassroots versus parliamentary performances shapes the results of the election. By the way, I'm aware that party manifesto and general themes can impact this contest. For example, the PAP has deployed an effective flight to safety team throughout their campaign, and that would have a pervasive impact across all battlegrounds. However, I referenced the other SDP contest in Sabah West SMC. Despite the effects of party policy differences and flight to safety effects, Dr. Chee Soon Juan almost won it. Therefore, we have to examine more constituency-specific factors to understanding what happened in Bukit Panjang. So let's start by looking at past results. In GE 2020, the PAP won around 53% of the votes, a marginal victory over the SDP. To give a more complete history, let's go back a few elections. So these results were all PAP versus SDP, and in GE 2015, the popular PAP MP Mr. Teo Ho Pin won a 68% mandate, and in GE 2011, he secured 66% of the votes. Fast forward to GE 2025, let's talk about grassroots. Let me show you a clip that summarizes everything you need to know about the incumbent's approach.
Good morning to everyone. Happy Sunday. Hi, hello. Well, just want to inform everyone that the RC here today will be distributing the self-test COVID ART test kits at the Block 443 Pavilion.
So that was Mr. Liang Eng Wah giving residents a morning wake-up call to collect their COVID-19 self-test kits. And I don't want us to go into the merits of vaccination or that it was an early Sunday morning. Let's focus on how Mr. Liang is visible, effective and consistent in front of his residents. Over the past 5 years as MP, he has gotten things done, showed residents that he got them done, and got credit for his showing. Nothing wrong with that. Thereby lies the challenge for our challenger, Dr. Paul Tambyah. In constituencies where the incumbent MP has been a superhero at the grassroots, it is virtually impossible to outshine them in this area. But that's not to say that Dr. Paul sat on his laurels. He tried to use a PAP accomplishment decades in the making to shift the sentiment.
For tonight, I'd like to talk about Bukit Panjang. Now, as you know, this is an older estate, and many improvements have been made over the years. These have all been funded by taxpayers. That includes you and I. And carried out by Singapore government agencies. Singapore government agencies have a well-deserved reputation in the region for being professional and efficient. They also have a reputation for being apolitical and not easily influenced by political influences. As such, there's no need to worry about the projects planned for Bukit Panjang or Sembawang Town or Marsiling UT for that matter. They will all be carried out professionally regardless of who is elected on May 3rd.
It's an argument that makes sense because Singapore has a strong civil service. But the same strong men and women serving the nation also lends to the point that projects and initiatives will go on no matter the elected representatives. So Mr. Leong responded specifically to this during his rally speech.
Often the civil servant will tell you, well, it's a good idea, but I can't support you for whatever reason, or they may not have funding at that point in time. So it's actually naive to think that it doesn't matter who is your MP. The agency will do all these things for you, to carry out all this project for you. It's not the case. We, the MPs, bridge the gap. So in most of my years of serving as an MP and in Bukit Panjang Town, actually a major part of my effort is to work with the bureaucracy, to bring much needed project to Bukit Panjang. Many were not in the original plan. And I must say the civil servants do their work, and then they do listen to me, and then eventually if there's merit for the case, it's justifiable, they do support. So I do thank them for doing that as well. So again, it's not autopilot. It doesn't come to you on a silver platter as what SDP may seem to suggest. So this characterization by Professor Tambyah as this being a rooster syndrome is just unjust and unfair.
Based on his response, let's call it a draw. Dr. Paul Tambyah tried to draw first blood, but I thought Mr. Leong successfully parried it by positioning himself as the difference maker. Another thought that I had was Dr. Paul could have positioned himself as an equivalent at the grassroots, and if he successfully establishes that, he could then differentiate himself as the superior parliamentarian to Mr. Leong. However, I do not think that he successfully made that equivalence. So this speech was one example where Dr. Tambyah acknowledged the good of a PAP-led initiative and was unable to convincingly convince voters that funding from projects like the $1 meal would be found and that the popular project would be continued.
One issue which does come up is the $1 meal. These meals are very popular. And in fact, just this afternoon, a resident of Bukit Panjang told us that he voted us in GE2020, but he said that the current MP organized these $1 meals from more than a year ago. And at the end of the visit, he said, you know, I like you, but those $1 meals did make a difference to me and my fellow citizens. I took his point. So I did some research. As far as we can tell, the funding has been provided by the People's Association, which is chaired by the Prime Minister. But while we may not have access to these funds right now, we are confident that we can find some other way to fund this project or a better project. Perhaps, as residents told us, using some funds generated from merchants' associations or other creative solutions.
Overall, this lack of traction at the grassroots hurt Dr. Paul Tambyah, setting him on the back foot from the get-go. That is not to say that there is no path to victory. The other aspect of MP candidacy that voters do consider is their ability to perform in Parliament. So for Mr. Liang Ying-Hua, he has regularly spoken up in Parliament, but frankly, I don't think that's going to be his competitive advantage.
Crux of the matter here is that we expect entities under the NTUC enterprise to not only do well, but also to do good. Do social cooperatives still have a role in our society? With NTUC enterprise ceding control of income to a foreign company, how is NTUC enterprise able to ensure that the acquired company, which will be foreign-owned now, be able to continue to do good? And if the acquired entity is no longer able to do as much good, will the government be prepared to step in to plug the gap?
So that was Mr. Liang raising questions on the 2023 Alliance Income deal. For someone like me who lives and breathes parliamentary speeches, I can only remember one memorable moment like that. So to me, this was an area of vulnerability that Dr. Paul Tambyah could have exploited. Now, Dr. Paul Tambyah tried to do just that. He focused on healthcare, which was a topic that is near and dear to older residents, a key demographic in Bukit Panjang, and the target of his focus, the face of healthcare in government, Health Minister Mr. Ong Ye King himself. So Dr. Paul Tambyah's first salvo went a little like this.
Now, Mr. Ong Ye Kung also revealed that he doesn't quite understand the principles of universal single-payer healthcare system. But if the minister did not read it, don't worry. I can provide you with the TLDR version. A single-payer healthcare system establishes a single risk pool consisting of the entire population. It also establishes a single set of rules for services, reimbursement rates, drug prices, and minimum standards for these services. Basically, you don't need the subsidies if we have a truly universal single-payer system. This will mean a huge savings, as Mr. Ong himself pointed out, that government spending on healthcare has gone from $9 billion to $23 billion under his watch.
So Dr. Paul is a world-renowned medical expert. His words carry weight when discussing healthcare, and it helped that his policy proposals are focused on cost reduction for Singaporeans when he proposed a single-payer system. And with cost of living being front and center of GE2025, I thought that was a right strategy. And this was the response from our health minister.
They want to redesign the whole healthcare system so that somehow, by magic, costs all come down, healthcare become more affordable. I tell you, most of us listen to single-payer system. We say, "Simi Today, if you go, unfortunately, touch wood, go to a hospital, you get a bill. Your bill is paid for in 3 ways. 3 ways. First, S stands for subsidy. Government subsidize the bill. Second, M means you claim MediShield Life, healthcare insurance. That pay for the bill. Finally, another M, MediSave. You use your MediSave to pay for the rest. Today, about 8 in 10 hospital bills just paid using SMM.
I think there's going to be two camps here. There's going to be one that hears the SMM logic proposed by the minister and find that it makes sense. So why change something that is working? There's another group that will point out the nuance that you need cash in addition to the SMM. And there's going to be some fine print around the SMM, etc. And some might even say that Minister Ong may have been too dismissive of Dr. Paul's proposal without proper consideration. After all, who is the subject matter expert here? But the point here is that this is a rally, not a platform or policy discussion. So Dr. Paul struggled to articulate the final points of his proposals. In fact, more than once, he had to outright say that he's summarizing. And healthcare policy is nuanced and complex. So to differentiate between policy choices, that's not something suited for a rally platform where important issues can be reduced to slogans. Even then, let's assume that Dr. Paul successfully wins the court of opinion. Residents completely buy into the merits of a single-payer scheme and trust in his stellar healthcare credentials. There's still a huge problem for him. A victory means making Minister Ong look bad. But Minister Ong is running in Sembawang, so the negative effects would largely translate to points for Dr. Paul's teammates contesting in Sembawang GRC and to Dr. Chi in Sembawang West. Voters in Bukit Panjang, I don't think that's going to sway them too much. That is if they even followed this entire discourse at all. So that advantage in policymaking that Dr. Paul has was rendered less effective. Now, if he went up against Minister Ong in Parliament prior, or a debate during the election, things would have been quite different. But that didn't come to pass. Also, another factor that could come into play in GE2025. Back in GE2020, where the contest was very close, healthcare was front and center due to COVID-19 pandemic. Today, healthcare is one of several existential issues in the mind of voters. So with cost of living, job security taking precedence in mindshare, the specific domain expertise of Dr. Paul did not have the same shine in GE2025. So overall, this is how I see the calculus. On the hardware of things, Mr. Liang Yingwa took significant advantage at the grassroots level. And on the hardware in Parliament, the brain power and policy-making chops, Dr. Paul focused on attacking Minister Ong, which I felt had limited impact on Bukit Panjang specifically. And that diminished effect took a further hit due to a shift of attention from healthcare to other existential issues in GE2025. And all of these forces came together to see the mandate gap widen by more than 15% between Dr. Paul and Mr. Liang. So everything we discussed in this video, it really goes to show the incumbent advantage in elections. If the incumbent MPs are diligent in entrenching themselves in the grassroots, the advantage is not insignificant. And we have seen this play out in SMC and even within GRCs where the popular grassroots-focused MPs have sometimes single-handedly carried their teams to victory with the smallest of margins. And with that thought, we have come to the end of today's Red Dot Perspective. What are your thoughts on Dr. Paul and the STP in Bukit Panjang? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. And take care, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.